Okay, we'll move right into the Leroy Boyd Forum. I have a few cards, 3 cards right now. Mr. Ellison Bennett. Mr. Bennett?
Yes. Ellison Bennett, 106 Baines Avenue. I come before you tonight as a former city councilman. I served proudly in the city of Haines City. Pensacola is my home. I have dedicated the latter part of my life to the citizens of this city. And what I have seen this past week, it just sickens me. I read this gag order. What are we saying to the dedicated employees that have worked for this city, have given up their time, and in the fire department's case, have protected our citizens? We can do better than that. We can do better than that as people. Somewhere I read, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is shameful what we have put 2 of our finest employees through. Shameful. I get calls from Atlanta, Miami, Montgomery. I serve on the national board, the National Movement for Civil and Human Rights. My national board chair is Dr. Ruby Moon. She is based in Rockville, Maryland. And she have appointed me 3 years ago whenever racism, bigotry, hatred, unfairness lift its ugly head in Pensacola, Escambia County, to address it. We have a conference call later tonight. We will be discussing the city of Pensacola. Have you all paid any attention at the turnover at City Hall? We got some good, dedicated employees, and we should show some appreciation to them. This is shameful, what we have been going through this past week. I'm not a person that throw a rock and hide my hand. I appreciate the mayor calling me. I appreciate the people up there that know me. I am dedicated to justice and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Maurice Moody.
My name is Maurice Moody, 1793 Manitoba Drive, Cantonment, and I have property on Lord Street. This is something that I don't ordinarily do. I don't get involved in civic matters ordinarily. I sometimes write a letter to the editor. And the last time that I was before this board was in 1996 during the rebel flag controversy. I'm here tonight because I'm really upset. I'm upset about what is going on at the fire station, the fire department. And so I was compelled to come down and say a few words. I've known Joseph Glover for about 25 years. I don't know him very well, but I know him well enough to know that he's a good, decent, intelligent, family, and God-fearing man. He's a son that has made his parents extremely proud. He is a citizen that any city would desire to have, And he has served this community faithfully many, many years. And not only is he a distinguished and honorable veteran who has served the U.S. Air Force for 20 years, but again, he's a good person. And to have him treated like this, in my estimation, is a travesty. Now, I don't know the chief. I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. But I know he's supporting Glover. And that's all I need to know. And that suggests to me that he's a good, decent man who has integrity, who believes in fairness, and who is principled. The notion that retaliation, and that's what this is, will be exacted on a leader who files an EEOC complaint to seek redress for systematic wrongs is beyond the pale and appalling. Mr. Olson, you were embroiled last year in another controversy with a concerned citizen, which ultimately led you to apologize. Your behavior, your conduct, told the community very clearly everything that we need to know about you. Now, Mr. Olson, you wish to tell the citizens of our great town that the changes to the city handbook regarding the appeals process dealing with disciplinary action don't have anything to do with the chief and Deputy Chief Glover, even though the changes were made after these two men were placed on leave. Sir, that just doesn't pass the smell test. Something, as Shakespeare would say, something is definitely wrong in Denmark. It's rotten to the core.
Thank you, Mr. Moody.
I'll end by quoting this. George Bush, circa 1990, he says, "This would not stand. This would not stand. We support those two men. They need to be back on their posts doing their job."
Thank you. Gary Sansing. Oh, that must be one of the press. Don't show me. Just leave it there. Don't take it, please.
Jerry Sansing, 1517 East Jackson, City of Five Flags. Thank you, sir. As you all know, or if not, I'll make you aware, this is Black History Month. And I got a few names here, starting with Reverend Matthew, the Reverend James S. Young and his wife, Commissioner Young, Leroy Boyd, and I like the name Leroy Boyd for a public forum, General Chappie James, and the last one, Johnson. Now, these sort of heroes or people that we should recognize this month. First off, tonight is a fundraiser for General Chappie James' birthplace, and it starts at 5:30. So I'll escort Mr. Mayor if he chooses to go. But I want, these names, I've either met friends, family, or themselves. These are people that have made wonderful changes in our community and outside of our community. And we want to make history in this state, in this country. And it's up to you people, okay? Now, we are making progress, but we're just bloody slow, but probably faster than the rest of the state. Now, next, I want to thank you. The city has reached out and helped restore and turn Chappie James home into a museum. Now, it's something that we can be proud of. I first read about him, and after I speak, if any of you wish to take a moment and speak to these names or either other people about these people, that would be appreciated. To educate our citizens about some of the heroes that have come out of this place. Now, I take 40 seconds, 38. I first read about, I think it was Colonel Chappie James in November 1962 in the Stars and Stripes. I didn't know if he's black or white, where he was from, but I said, what a hero. And I followed his career and listened to people who had served under him. Amazing man. I watched him in Vietnam. I watched him, I've seen what he did do. And again,
Thank you, Mr. Sansing.
it's up to you guys to help educate us, show leadership, and be proud of our city. Make us proud. Thank you.
Hold on just one second, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to tell
It's Gary.
Yeah, we know. I saw you earlier, Gary.
Oh, yeah.
We're raising money tonight at the Chappie James to kick off for the museum, but most importantly, what's very, very special is for the Flight Academy, the Chappie James Flight Academy. And Cliff Curtis is heading this up, and he's been doing it for the past few years.
I'm aware.
And it's very big that we all get behind this, so I'm glad you're going. Thank you.
Oh, I'm leaving shortly.
Okay, great.
Okay? And again, I thank you for your support on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Sansing. Ms. Diane Crummell.
Good evening. I am here to defend the fire chiefs that are under attack by the city. Eric Olson, this reeks of Melanie Nichols' case just months ago when you tried to get her fired at her job for speaking out against that tower being put in her neighborhood. As a result, a vote of no confidence was taken, and I, for one, am disappointed that it didn't pass. And now you're doing the exact same thing again with the two top leaders in the fire department that you tried to do the same thing to Melanie Nichols. As I see it, you're trying to get them fired. Fire Chief Matt Schmidt has been with the fire department for more than 36 years. Deputy Fire Chief Joseph Glover has been with the fire department for over 25 years. And from what I can find, they both have had a very good record. I see this action you have taken as a deliberate retaliation because they filed a complaint with the EEOC. So here's how I see it, Eric Olson. There is little information out there, and I can only come to these conclusions based on what I can find on my own. You asked these guys, these gentlemen, these leaders of our community to come to City Hall, and you asked them to surrender their keys and their badges. And when they asked what they did, you had no answers. In my opinion, I believe it has to do with the systemic racism that exists here in Pensacola. It is my opinion that the administrative leave you put in place against these two leaders in our community is a direct result of them filing unfair wage practices with the EEOC. This is your attempt to shut them down. It is because you're afraid of what the EEOC investigation will find. Is that what you're afraid of? That Deputy Fire Chief Joseph Glover is totally qualified, and the only reason he didn't get paid the same as the person whose job he took was because of the color of his skin. I have lived here for over 50 years, and I do believe that systemic racism does exist here in Pensacola. So you concocted this bogus scheme and wouldn't give the public or anybody, not even those guys, the details because you didn't have anything. You needed the time to dig something up so you could throw it up to the wall and hope it would stick. So you came up with this. They conducted job interviews that didn't go along with procedure. What about the other people that were involved with this procedure? Why weren't they put on administrative leave? You're taking the Fire Chief Schmidt down with Deputy Glover simply because he supported Deputy Glover. To me, I see this as you're saying. This is what I think you're saying to the community. How dare you file this complaint? I'll show you. Just like you did with Melanie Nichols. And as it was pointed out, you had to apologize to her. I mean, you're here to learn on the job. You should already know what you're doing. Mr. Olson, you said it was a coincidence that changes were made to the city's Human Rights Resource Manual regarding its administrative appeal process on the same day the firefighters were placed on leave, hours after Chief Schmidt requested an administrative appeal. Please, I'm going to finish this. From what I've tried to find out, Mr. Olson, you had the final say on this appeal process.
Ms. Crummell.
Now you're trying to sell it to the city of Pensacola. How stupid do you think we are?
Ms. Crummell.
You know what? It's time. It is time. It's time that the truth be told.
Patricia Shaw.
Yes, I'm here. Present.
No.
Did somebody have a question for me?
No, I said Patricia Shaw.
Okay. I'll talk about it. Read more on my
Split personality.
I am Patricia Shaw. I'm a business owner and a property owner in this city of Pensacola, which I have in the past been very proud of. But until of late, I'm ashamed and I'm disgusted at how my son, Joseph Glover, has been treated. You've caused my family shame. You've caused us anguish and pain. And I'm ashamed of this city, ashamed that I live here. I just can't believe that people of your accord could conjure up something like this against two fine young men, two of the finest that I've ever known in the city of Pensacola at the fire department. What I see here is hypocritical pretense. You show us one side and then you get behind our backs and show us something else. That's what I see. I'm angry, yes. He asked me not to come and speak. My son did, but I just had to speak. I'd just blow up. I've been wondering for 5 years why my son has never been recognized for the accomplishments that he's made at the fire department. And now I see. He's the first black who's ever held this position. And it's never been mentioned. People are just finding out that my son has the position that he has. He's a fine young man. He was brought up in a Christian home, and I don't know anybody that has anything against him except the city. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw? Ms. Shaw? Hold on just a second. I just want to be clear that the actions that were taken were not taken by this council. I have the highest respect for your son. I know it took a lot for you to come down here. And knowing Joe, I'm sure he told you not to come down here.
Yes.
But, you know, I just cannot express to you how badly I feel for him and the situation he's been placed in. And it has made me a little bit sick to be in this city as well. Thank you. Ms. Dubuisson, Dottie Dubuisson.
Dottie Dubuisson, resident of the city. Originally, I intended to read a Facebook posting concerning General Chappie James, because today being his birthday, I thought it was important that we all recognize why Chappie James' house and steps and the museum are in place. But considering all the conversations that preceded me, it seems almost hypocritical to even talk about the importance of Chappie James, because we held him up to so many people in this community as what we aspire to have our citizens become. Highly qualified, highly trained, honorably recognized citizens who bring others up with them, who train others, who mentor others. And I realized as I was reading the text here that I already know the next generation of Chappie James, and that would be Joe Glover. I sit at the Veterans Memorial Park Board regularly when Joe is there. And it is Joe who sometimes will say, oh, I'm not sure that's the process, let's think about it. It is Joe who will say things about how the young kids can be included. And what I have been told about this whole process is Joe's biggest concern is the high school kid he mentors and how that kid is being impacted by what's going on. Because no matter which way it turns out, that kid is seeing a failure of the system. Because if Joe ends up being negatively impacted the way it has been presumed by the way he was treated that he deserves, then he will have let the young man down. And if, on the other hand, the system which our administration has in fact put Joe through turns out to be as skewed as it appears, then the system has let Joe down. So despite whatever Joe has taught this young man about holding on to the core beliefs, the core truths, and the honorable principles that move you forward, this young man is seeing his mentor be pulled down, or the system that Joe defends being pulled down. It's a no-win situation. And the same person who is in charge of causing this to happen previously has been in charge of others. And I'm not looking at you, Mr. Olson, I'm looking at you, Mr. Mayor, because you are ultimately the person who is allowing this to continue. And I hope and pray with every ounce of my being that you will look seriously at the processes that have caused our deep-seated experts of our community to leave your administration over and over and over again, because the system is broken and enough is enough. Please fix it.
Thank you, Ms. Dubuisson. Jerry McIntosh?
I'm here to speak on behalf of both of the men that was that's been portrayed in the media as if some kind of way that they have committed some kind of crime. So I want to ask the question. Well, in the paper today it says, they was quoting Mr. Olson, said, but if it not had been, if someone hadn't left the room and said anything, we wouldn't be talking about it now. You're probably right. We probably wouldn't be talking about it now, because you would have did what you had to do and probably fired them Friday, and nobody would have known what the deal was, because you would have had already conjured up whatever you wanted to say about it. But you talked about, Mr. Wales was talking about the process of hiring. The people that need to be looked into is the process that is being hired, but the HR who need to be looked at, their policy, manuals and changes, all of that need to be looked into and investigated. I'd like to ask the question, how many African Americans have you hired lately, if any? And then how many have you ran off lately? We know that you have. Next thing, Mr. Olson, you should resign.
Yes.
Immediately. Or be fired immediately because of what you are doing here in this city. We are sick and tired of all of the shenanigans that goes on here, and you're using our taxpayers' money to do it. So we are tired of you and all of your shenanigans that goes on in this city. Also, there's nothing in all the world more dangerous than sincere ignorance and consistent stupidity. There come a time when everybody get tired of being beat down and oppressed by powers that is so arrogant that they don't understand that there are people out here who work and just want to have a good job and make a good living and live a good life as you do and others. So I say again and again, you need to resign and go home.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Sheryl Poeyster.
Thank you. Sheryl Poeyster, 1106 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, City of Pensacola. And I have been asked to come up here and complete the prepared talk that Ms. Crummell had prepared for this occasion. And I would like to take on my own behalf the opportunity to thank those who have already come up here and spoken so eloquently. Mr. Olson, to pick it up, Mr. Olson said it was a coincidence that changes were made in the city's Human Resources Manual regarding the administrative appeal process on the same day the firefighters were placed on leave, hours after Fire Chief Schmidt requested an administrative appeal. From what I have tried to find out, you, Mr. Olson, have the final say on the appeal process now. And now you're trying to sell it to the citizens of Pensacola that this was a coincidence? How stupid do you think the public is? This is your way of sending a message of intimidation that you had better not question anything you or the city does, because if you do, you'll suffer the consequences of your action. If you can take down the top 2 people in the fire department, then you think you can send a message to everyone else that they had better think twice, because if you do speak out, if they do speak out, Mr. Olson, you will see to it that they lose their job. You seek to rule by intimidation and retaliation. And now you have warned city employees they could face disciplinary action should they speak out about the 2 city fire chiefs. Are you kidding me? Are you a Gestapo? I hope these firefighters sue the city and the truth comes out. You, Mr. Olson, are a disgrace to this city, and I am asking for your resignation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poeyster. We'll move into awards and presentations. I'd like to welcome Mr. Butch Hanson, the president of the Veterans Memorial Park Foundation, to make a presentation.
Mr. President, I just wanted
sorry.
to... Yes.
Councilwoman Canawin.
Yes, most of all of the comments here has been about this issue. I was wondering, is it appropriate during the mayor's report to ask for an explanation of the process that's going on, time limits, or at what point in this meeting we can do that, or do we have to wait? Or are we subject to the gag order or some those things?
Councilwoman Canawin, we are not subject to the gag order. I think that was given out to employees. It did not come in my email. We are able to talk about this. I had actually prepared an add-on item just in case to have a discussion and to allow other people to speak if they wanted to. We can either do that when we get to the agenda approval, or we can wait until the mayor's report.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.